In special conversation with Dr. G, and his dialogue will reveal how smarter reporting maximizes tangible impact. Please welcome them with a big round of applause, and let's look forward to a memorable conversation.
Good evening. Thank you so much to the Times Group and the ET Edge. It's a very special moment for not only us here, sir, to be joined by the legendary father of Indian CSR, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee, but by all of you, because we are actually, as a country, and it's so inspirational to hear Baglaji all the time, where he puts India first. And I think today we are also here to celebrate India first. And therefore, all of you will know, and that is something, sir, my learnings from you. I have been your student. I will always be your student. Many of us in the audience, no matter what our designations are in the area of CSR, we are still taking baby steps, and we are seeking your guidance as we move towards a Viksit Bharat. And in that Viksit Bharat, we all know how important CSR and sustainability is. And nobody better, sir, than to hear from you. And therefore, today, I will keep my questions very short. We'll have a chat, sir. And therefore, we thought of calling today's session very simple. Whatever the title is, great. But basically, this session is going to be called the ET Edge and GSA session. And why are we calling it so? Because that is what ET Edge has brought us all together. So without further ado, sir, let me start with impact is something that we went on hearing in every panel before us. When we talk of impact, I think another word, alphabet with E, is evidence. E for evidence. Do you think, sir, today when we talk of transformation in CSR, evidence-based decision-making, showing impact through evidence is important? And how is corporate India adapting itself to that process?
Yes, Rohan, a very good question, and one which needs some reflection. But before we get there, let me try and give everybody in the room some idea of what is CSR, how does it work in India? And you don't be able to consider impact if you don't know how it works. In the social responsibility ecosystem in India, the corporate funds, it also monitors and it is supposed to measure the impact. So the funding comes from corporate India. It's corporate social responsibility. Who executes the project that the corporate envisages? It is the implementing agency, which at the ground level implements the project, right? So there is a funder and there is an implementer, and together they conceptualize a project and make it work. When you come to impact, it's important for us to say that did the money spent have the desired impact on the ground? Now, unlike in the previous panels, we heard a lot about impact, but those impacts are more social impact, more amorphous, very difficult to capture in real terms. But because CSR is project-based, you can do social impact assessment in terms of real evidence, real data, and you can give measurable impact. What doesn't get measured doesn't get done.
We'll come to a lot more, sir. You obviously quoted many of the Western scholars, but I think here we are here to celebrate India and to the knowledge that many of those sitting in the audience have contributed through CSR. What you spoke about, sir, was the role of business and the NGOs. But I think, sir, what you have today famously popularized in coming to T, so E for evidence, T for what, sir, I would like to call the Trikon, and what is being taught in universities today, which I teach to my students, the Chatterjee Trikon. So what is the third aspect of the Chatterjee Trikon, which you have been part of, sir, in government? And how does all these three stakeholders come together when you assess where CSR is today in our country?
Yeah, so many of you who are CSR specialists in the audience would know that prior to the law in India, everything that was written in the development of CSR as a subject was 95% American. 5% was UK. There was no Indian contribution of any kind in the domain of CSR ever. When we brought CSR to India, it was an entirely Bharatiya concept. For India, by India, in India. And this Chatterjee Trikon about which you speak, the Chatterjee Triangle, has now replaced in universities what used to be taught as Carroll's Pyramid.
Yes, that's right.
The Chatterjee Pyramid is far simpler, much more simple than the Carroll's complex pyramid, if I may call it that. It simply says that at the apex of that triangle or pyramid sits government, which is the facilitator and the regulator. The two extremities at the bottom of that pyramid, one, the corporate entity, which funds, which monitors, and needs to measure the impact. And the implementer is at the other side of the base of the triangle, the civil society organization, the NGO, the trust, the society, which actually carries out the project on the ground. It is this triad, this triangle, which represents the Chatterjee thesis on CSR.
So I think that is something coming out of India, and I think something that many of us, which I have definitely been doing, is that the reference points, and we are going to delve into standards and reporting standards very shortly. And since Dr. Chatterjee, you are here, you're leading that entire effort for the government of India, where we try to look at CSR 2.0 today. But before that, sir, you spoke about E for evidence, T for Trikon. But you know, ET or the Economic Times, they do such interesting work. Where do you think an organization like ET or the Times Group fits into the Chatterjee Trikon? They are neither government, neither they're civil society, neither are they just a business. Do you think that agencies like the Times Group or the media today is also a very important stakeholder in the whole CSR ecosystem?
You know, for this ecosystem to grow, as indeed it has grown, the media's role is vital. And I think it is so in every sphere of life, but particularly when you talk of social responsibility, when you talk about reaching out to the underprivileged, the voiceless, the marginalized, it is only the media which can carry that message. At the end of the day, communities, people who are at the bottom of the pyramid, so to speak, are reliant on what? Are reliant on the fact that they are able to read about things, understand, get some sort of knowledge capsules that they can, understand how to relate to what they need to do to take them to the next stage. And the media, I think, plays a vital role in propagating that knowledge. Without that, vast knowledge gaps would exist, and we would not get through to the audience that we want to.
Coming back to two more T's, sir. So, let's hear it for the Times Group and ET for really organizing such events where we actually get to hear and see who are the real change makers. And many of you are going to be honored today on stage in a while from now. And I think it's very, very crucial that it's been a decade, sir, since you wrote the first ever CSR legislation with your own hands. As of yesterday, there's a news item which says, and I don't know how you take it because it must be very nostalgic for you. Yesterday, there is a news item which says that the entire section 135, of which you know it so well, is being revised or it has been tabled in Parliament. Can you tell us a little bit about that process and what exactly is the intent behind this amendment? And where do you see T for transformation happening in the country with this amendment of the bill into an act, of the Companies Act, sir?
A good question, Rohan. And it takes back a form of nostalgia because I go back to 2009-10 when we first brought the concept of strategic CSR into India. I say 9-10 because it was first brought into the public sector enterprises from the 1st of April 2010. And it is those guidelines written at that time that were capsuled, if I may use the word, into section 135. Now, when we first wrote that policy, it was more like an experiment. Will corporate India really take to it? Will the whole CSR ecosystem grow and prosper? Will it just die a natural death? And it's amazing to say that when we first looked at it in 2014-15, there were about 8,000 companies. And the total investment was around 9 to 10,000 crores. 23-24, 31st March, 8,000 companies have become 28,000 companies. Look at the exponential growth. That 9,000 crores in 2014 is now 35,000 crores. CSR has become a sector of the economy. The employment it is providing in all its varied forms runs into tens of millions. It has become a gigantic part of our entire social and economic system. What this new bill will now do is that after 10 years, for the first time, Section 135 will be revised. It has stood the test of time, 1 decade. And what is the revision like? Instead of 5 crores of consistent profits, that threshold is being reduced to 3 crores. What does it mean? It means that now from the next financial year, instead of 28,000 companies, there'll be 50,000 companies. Expenditure on CSR from 35,000 crores will go to 55,000 crores every year. I mean, the potential for Indian Inc. to contribute to the nation's inclusive development is something that the world will look up to and say, this is India. Mr. Bagla spoke, and very feelingly and very correctly, that this tectonic shift happening across India is remarkable. And contributing in a very big way is, of course, innovation, about which he spoke, and about CSR, which actually takes all of sustainability, all of innovation. And what does it do? It converts it into models of development. It converts it into models of collaboration. Everything we see in SDG or ESG for that matter, CSR encompasses and then takes it a step forward. That is the transformative, to use the word, value of CSR.
So we've spoken of E for evidence, for impact. We've spoken of T for transformation. Of course, Baglaji spoke about innovation, and technology also comes there. But coming to edge, you spoke about, sir, what you have pioneered and popularized today. I would say in the global south, today there are countries, fellow countries that are looking at the Indian or the Bharatiya model of CSR. And my question to you there is, because when we talk of development, we cannot not see it in the context of geopolitics or sustainable development. For us, even in sustainability and ESG, the reference points have always been the global north. And like you said, there was all the literature coming out was from the US, from UK. In a changing world, geopolitics where, India is becoming the Vishwa Guru, we are occupying a place of prestige and power on the world map. What role do you think Bharatiya model of CSR and sustainability will really play for India to truly become a Vishwa Guru, where tomorrow countries, just like we keep on talking of Japanese companies being the benchmark, 10, 15 years from now, the world will say, you know what? India does its business on the model of responsible business conduct. Can you please take us through it, having been part of the policy making? Where does responsible business conduct come in? Where does ethical business come in? And how is it giving a competitive advantage to our Indian businesses who do CSR using the Bharatiya model, sir?
Complex question. But let's start with one important sentence. The divide between the global north and the global south. And I want to say that for several decades now, if not for a century, the global north has been speaking down to us. Like, you should do. And my response to that, to the global north, is this. When you talk to us or you speak to us, we will talk to you. because that's a dialogue. When you preach to us, we will disconnect because now you listen to us.
Yes, absolutely, sir.
And that's why when you talk of Bharat becoming the Vishwa Guru, it is now that we stand at the crossroads when we can, of course, our great leader and the Prime Minister of our nation stands at the apex of this change. When he speaks, the world listens.
Absolutely.
Why? And that is because the transformation that is across the face of our nation. He is the person who enunciates that change. But if he were just talking, why would people listen? Because India also embodies that change. How can Indian companies become more responsible? I see that already happening. And that is because if you take even the hard to abate sectors like steel or cement, and you have legends in the steel industry like Pankaj Satija sitting here, they are the harbingers of trying to look at how we can minimize all the damage that we have done. How can we re-engineer processes to see that we consume less water, we use less energy in what we produce, across the entire value chain about which the previous panel spoke, across the entire supply chain that we spoke about, scope 2, scope 3. Today, this transformational change that you see in corporate India is visible because of these 2 or 3 things. One, give back from that very society from which we make our profits. 2, make those profits in a sustainable way. It's not about how you spend your profits only, it's about how you make them. And that, I think, lies at the essence of the change that you see in corporate India.
So, and you think, sir, that what you rightly said, and there are a lot of companies here who are being awarded today whose philosophy has been that we don't care about the 2%, we actually care about the 98%. And what you said, sir, is about the whole responsible business conduct, because corporate integrity or conduct is not like a jacket that you wear on when you want to look good, but it's about how you behave at all times. Coming to the last and the part of our discussion, sir, while we would love to continue with you, and I'm sure a lot of people want to connect with you offline, but I think something relevant to us today is this whole complaint or discomfort that CSR and sustainability in India is becoming too compliance-driven. In the name of transparency, it is largely about processes than about people and the impact. Therefore, sir, and that is my second last question to you, is that you have been today mandated as the chairman of the National Sustainability Standards Committee under the aegis of the BIS. As the chairman, as the visionary looking at CSR and ESG integration for India over the next 10 years, how do you propose to help corporates when it comes to ease of doing business? How do you propose to help our friends from the not-for-profit sector so that they can actually focus on doing good work on the field rather than prepare elaborate documentation? What does the father of Indian CSR and sustainability have? What's a solution you can provide to our people here, sir?
Another one of your googlies. But yeah, it is hard. You know, the bigger a space gets, the more regulation it also needs. Because when it is a small microcosm, it can leave it on its own to grow. But the bigger that space gets, the more corporates it encompasses, the more NGOs that come into the picture, it becomes a wild mass of things happening. If there is not some form of regulation, it will go completely out of hand. And I think the government's intent is definitely to provide a kind of format in which to make its compliances. Of course, the burden of compliance is also a cost burden. And the more compliances they are, the higher the cost. But look at the way we're going about it. All of sustainability now has one reporting, BRSR. It took us a long time to go from BRR to BRSR. But when we went there, whether it's steel, whether it's cement, whether it's pharmaceuticals, whether it's drugs, whatever be the sector of the economy, they report in what? One template. It's not that steel is reporting in one and cement is reporting in another. No. So the attempt of the government is try to reduce everything to its simplest form. So also if you look at CSR, in the reporting format, we have only one annexure 2, and that's all you report on. So government is conscious. We have to make a balance between non-reporting or what do you call it, greenwashing and responsible reporting. And that's the cutting edge.
We'll end with this whole concept of impact, which sir, all of us in this room are eventually talking about. That's what the title of the panel also is. And you spoke about compliance. Today, one of the compliances for CSR and where they are all struggling, every business leader keeps telling me, Professor, can you please help us with one standardized impact assessment template? What does a good impact assessment report look like? What has been your experience, sir, and going forward as the chairman of this national committee, as the father of CSR, do you think that the CSR domain requires some sort of standardization in the project cycle?
Yes, and the previous group also spoke about standardization. And I think the one element of CSR we have not been able to tie up so far is a format for social impact assessment. There is no national format.
Okay.
And therefore, every company engages different people to do their social impact assessment. Every social impact assessor gives it in a different format. So, just to share with you, I'm on a project that is trying to make one standard format for social impact reporting. It will take a little while because it's a tough call to do, but hopefully we will succeed, and that will be a great, great benefit for CSR in India.
And the last question, which we cannot let any session with Dr. Chatterjee end without talking of what has today become so popular, the Chatterjeeism, as they call it. So what is your Chatterjeeism for this year's ET Edge GSA series? Which one of your Chatterjeeism do you think will be the most relevant?
Well, for me, the one that has remained relevant right across from the time I began writing is that we have taken CSR from the back room to the boardroom. All decisions in CSR now rest with the best brains of the company, which are at the board. It has become a board-driven agenda. And that is the reason why it has been such a success. That is the most enduring of all the Chatterjeeisms in the CSR space.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, no better way to end. I think, sir, what you just said, and I think that is being reiterated, that A, the success of India's CSR legislation, we are not only blessed, but we are so proud as a nation that India is the first country in the entire world that had a CSR legislation. We are honored, sir, that likes of you with so much of expertise, not only as a bureaucrat, but also as a scholar. You brought in that academic rigor. Many of those I am indebted to you for as a scholar, sir. But I think what has really helped India get that edge is the whole Bharatiya model of CSR, so which you said, where we are actually looking at CSR for a larger purpose, a larger goal. And the larger goal has earlier been MDGs, today it's the SDGs. And as we move towards 3 critical deadlines for our country, 2030, the SDGs, 2047, Viksit Bharat, and 27 net zero, we also have so much of political will where this entire goal is being spearheaded by our Honorable PM. It is being supported by 2 critical ministries, the Ministry of Finance for the public sector, and many of them are here, as well as the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. And of course, sir, we always have you as the guru to guide this country as we integrate CSR with sustainability, and we ensure that collectively, Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas ke saath, we are able to move towards a Viksit Bharat, where tomorrow, like you rightly said, sir, it is India's time. Clearly, it is your time, Dr. Chatterjee, in the sun. It is my time. It is all our time. And with that, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and Jai Hind, Jai Bharat. Thank you, sir.
A big thank you, Dr. Bhaskar Chatterjee and Professor Rohan Sharma, for the truly defining conversation. taking us from the origins of CSR in India to the tectonic shift it is witnessing, thereby becoming an ecosystem and a sector on its own. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give them a resounding round of applause. Thank you.